Welcome, everybody, to the Tuesday edition of Talkback, brought to you by, and I love saying that, brought to you by the Mustard Seed Asian Cafe in Southgate Mall, Kootenai Creek Village, the maintenance-free active adult community in Stevensville, the best of Western Montana living. Dig It Excavating, where they bring 30 years of excellence to every job. Call 214-4292. Also brought to you by Selway Armory on Stockyard Road. More guns and ammo than anyone in Missoula. The best prices in Montana, Montana's premier firearms dealer.
The views and opinions expressed on Talkback are not those of the staff, management, or advertisers.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you can probably sense a legendary figure in our studio today.
Oh, stop it.
Our good friend Angel is with us from The Blaze, and it is good to see you.
Hi, Peter. It's very strange to be on real radio and not silly radio down the hallway.
You know, I feel the opposite when I talk to people around town. Like, oh, yeah, I work at Town Square Media. Yeah, like The Blaze and Angel. And oh, yeah, real radio. The Blaze. The radio that people listen to.
Exactly.
Not the news. Yeah,
I know.
Well, Angel is in the studio today, and she's here for a special reason. We are going to have a little bit of a different talkback show, which I guess we always have weird talkback shows. But
well, we talked about the philosophy of religion yesterday.
We're
not supposed to talk about religion on the radio, right?
So today, getting really personal, we're going to talk a little bit about alcohol addiction in Montana and the process of getting out of that. So, Angel, I guess to start off, why don't you just kind of tell you the story from your point of view, how things happened?
Okay. Well, obviously, I think everybody knows that alcohol addiction is pretty prevalent here in Montana. It's very socially acceptable, and especially here in Missoula, we're a party city. I mean, that's just a fact. So a lot of people grow up with that around them, and I did, and I grew up here in Missoula. And, being in the radio business, and especially on The Blaze, we throw a lot of parties, concerts. I mean, we're out several nights a week, out socializing with our listeners. And that's kind of how it started for me, just socializing, social drinking, which, most people do here in Montana. And it kind of escalated from there since, I was out several times a week. And it just got to the point recently where I was waking up feeling like crap, and it wasn't a hangover sickness. It was more of I need to have another drink because I don't feel good. And that alarmed me because I have a family. I have a husband. I have a daughter. I have responsibilities. And I never, strayed from those responsibilities. While I was drinking, I paid my bills. I came to work. I excelled at work even. And I never strayed from my responsibilities, so I was a functioning alcoholic. And one day I just woke up and was like, I can't do this anymore. And so I looked for help, and I didn't know anybody. I don't know anybody that's a non-drinker. I have family members that are, but they never were drinkers. I don't know anybody who's in recovery. Everybody I know is a partier or, a social drinker. And so I tried to reach out to people, and nobody knew how to get help, which was concerning to me because, you can watch TV and there's 1,000 commercials to quit smoking. You can walk into the store and there's 1,000 products to quit smoking. There's dozens of phone numbers to call if you want to quit doing meth or opiates, but there's nothing for people who have an alcohol problem.
So do you feel like there was no bridges for you? There was no solutions? I mean, what did you try after your friends didn't have any answers for you?
Well, and I've tried stopping on my own before, which, as you know, can be dangerous. Or I don't know, I say as you know, but I know now. Even, my doctor was like, well, just stop. And that can be very dangerous. People can die from that. It's an addiction. If you stop suddenly, you can die. And I've known people to die from doing that. So, people would say, well, just stop. I'll help you stop. And it's not that easy because, alcohol addiction is a real disease. It's a disease of your brain, and it's a medical condition. You can't just stop doing it. That would, be like a diabetic stopping their medicine and just eating sugar all day, or, it's a real disease. So, there, and like I was saying, there's not a lot of help out there. So I reached out to a few friends. I do have a friend, a childhood friend, who has been sober for 13 years. So I reached out to him, and he doesn't live here in Missoula, and he didn't know how to get help in Missoula. And, I had several friends say, well, just go to some AA meetings. Mm-hmm. And that's not really the answer. At that point, wasn't the answer. Now, that I'm 35 days in recovery, AA is a good option for people. The 12-step program is a good option for people. But
you're talking about immediate, I need help now stuff, especially like medically based stuff, right?
Sure. And you can go to the emergency room and say, I'm feeling this way and I feel like I'm going to die, literally feel like you're going to die from withdrawals. And, they'll give you a shot of Ativan and send you home so you feel better for the day. But then what happens after that? What is your help after that? And not a lot of people have answers for that. So I ended up simply Googling recovery, Missoula, and came across a center, and that's where I ended up going for a month.
Well, tell us a little bit about the center and what you thought about it. How did it work for you?
It was phenomenal. You don't know what to expect walking into a place like that. With never having sought help for this particular problem.
What's the name of it?
Yeah, I was going to feel comfortable sharing the name.
Sure, it's the Recovery Center, Missoula.
Oh, that's really simple.
Yeah,
it's exactly
simple.
what you Googled.
Yeah.
Genius.
Yeah, so for short, we call it RCM. And I didn't know what to expect. My family had no idea what to expect. In fact, my mother had gone in the Friday before, I found this out later, and asked if I would be in a padded room.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, we had no idea what it was like.
So was it inpatient, outpatient, what?
You can do, a little of both. I did inpatient. Most people do inpatient for the first 2 weeks, and then the second 2 weeks they go home at night. If they're from Missoula, if they live in town, they can go home at night, see their families and things like that, and then go back during the day. And since I lived so close to to the center, I stayed inpatient for 5 days, and then I went to partials and went home at night. But it's a fantastic facility. I'm very supportive staff. The people that are there chose to be there. They're choosing to be there. It was their decision. It wasn't one of those things where, well, you're either going to go to jail or you can go to recovery.
Right.
It wasn't that type of a thing. The people I was surrounded by, they wanted to be there. They wanted to get better.
I wanted to ask you what you think society should do differently. Obviously, there's money that we spend as a society on stopping meth addiction, stopping smoking addiction, stopping all kinds of other illnesses and ailments that societies have. Alcoholism is a big deal in Montana. Not only does it lead to many deaths just through overdosing and getting sick and falling downstairs accidents, but driving accidents famously were one of the highest in the nation for. So I guess my question for you is, for someone like you, when you go out to a bar or you go out drinking with friends, do you think there should be messaging out there of how to get help if you are in need of it?
I guess, I haven't really thought about it that far ahead on how to prevent this, it would be nice if there were easier ways to figure out how to get help instead of, asking random people or having to Google. I mean, and the recovery center, there's a line to, there's a list to get in there because people from all over Montana, when I was there, I met people from Helena, Billings, and all over Montana because as far as I'm concerned, it's the best center in Montana, but I wouldn't have known how to find them.
Sure.
So I don't know. I guess they don't necessarily need to advertise, but
sure.
I don't know.
We're up against a break. We're going to we'll talk more about this, but I really want to tap the wisdom of our listeners, and we do have a lot of folks out there who have been around and maybe have some suggestions or ideas or whatever. We'd love to hear from you, 721-1290. Our good friend Angel, pretty gutsy, standing right here talking about this, and we sure appreciate it. We're going to come right back with more of Talkback here in a moment. Okay, we're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number. Angel is joining us in the studio. Angel from The Blaze, and let's get to the phones and say good morning to Dave. Hey, Dave, what's up?
Well, I think that alcoholism and gambling go hand in glove, and I don't think there's a place to treat gambling in Missoula any more than there is alcoholism, evidently.
It's a good.
All right, good point. Thanks, Dave.
I guess they're different types of addiction.
Well, I have a friend who was a gambling addict, mm-hmm. and he went through years of therapy because gambling is the one addiction that promises a reward at the end. The idea is if you keep going, the law of averages is going to catch up, and you'll hit that big one. Mm. Eventually, you'll hit that big one.
Video games do that too.
I lost this one. I lost this one. I lost this one. But on the horizon, my lucky number is coming up.
I got 500 levels of Candy Crush that tell me that there's another form of addiction that promises a win at the end.
Anyway.
But yeah, I think there is a significant difference for those chemical dependencies like alcoholism, where your body is actually changed in a physiological way by the
and your brain chemistry.
And you actually need the help of medical professionals to kind of migrate out of that. It's not something you can just say, stop tomorrow. If you're really into it, at least that's what I'm getting from you, Angel.
Yeah, well, and I also have friends, who just kind of muscled through it and stopped, and they're still sober today. A very few friends, just a couple of people, but I would say that recovery is the way to go, simply because not just the physical aspect of it, but the mental aspect of it. They taught, I learned so much about what this does to your body and your brain.
Can you share some of that?
Yeah, give us some of the highlights, things that you didn't know about alcohol before you went in.
There's just an endless amount. Just the mental stability and all the things that are affected by it, and how one becomes an alcoholic. It's not just like one day, okay, I'm going to be an alcoholic today. It's a progression, and 40 to 50% of it is hereditary. It's through your genes, and then 40 to 50% of it is your environment and your surroundings. So, you put those together, like if you have a dad who's an alcoholic, a mom who's an alcoholic, alcoholism in the family, and then you're also surrounded by the social acceptance of alcohol, that kind of, is 80% chance that you're going to be an alcoholic. So
I wanted to get into the reasons why you had explained earlier that you felt you wanted to leave this lifestyle or this behavior you had developed. And you had mentioned that you were very high functioning. And you were doing well. I know that you were very high functioning because you were kicking it when it comes to the ratings and everything at your job. I'd see every day. I never saw you feel like you were inebriated or anything, or to the point where you couldn't perform any sort of work or drive or anything.
Sure.
So I guess my question is, what are the things that you found in your life that led you to change behavior?
Simply, I first of all just didn't feel very good. I didn't feel very good physically or mentally. I was disappointed in myself, and I just didn't feel good. If you're an alcoholic and you're not drinking, you don't feel good. I feel great now. I feel like $1 million, but I've also been through 35 days of recovery. But if you just try and do it on your own, it feels awful. It really does feel like you're going to die, and I just want to reiterate that, I'm not excited to go out and talk about my addiction. It's not something to be proud of, but I am proud of the fact that I made the decision to go to recovery. And the only reason I share my story is try and help other people because, like I said, when I was trying to find help, I had no idea who to ask.
Well, I know there are people out there, I know some personally, that struggle with this issue and feel like they're trapped. That if they get out and their work finds out, they'll lose their job, or if their family finds out, they'll lose respect. And it's a really hard one to work around because, you disappeared almost for a little while, at least when it comes to your work life, right?
Mm-hmm. And, a lot of people feel some shame in, first of all, asking for help. Secondly, admitting that they have a problem. Most of the people that I was in recovery with, they were very secretive about their problem. They said, nobody even knows I'm here. And I feel like that's kind of detrimental to recovery just because if you don't tell the people around you that you need support, that you need help, then you're kind of on your own still. I'm very open about it simply because I feel like the more people who know, the less people that will invite me to party.
Exactly. Or say, hey, you want to go out for a beer?
Exactly.
Or want to go for a drink?
Or offer me beer, or offer me. Because everybody who comes to visit me in the studio, their hello gift to me is booze.
Right.
That's not uncommon. And I want as many people to know as possible.
Sure. Here's the way it starts from the people that I've talked with. And of course, I grew up in Helena, and there were keggers every weekend. And you go out to the kegger, and the red cup. Everybody's got a red cup, and there's a big keg, and you're filling it up, and all the stuff. And it starts there, sometimes as young as 13, 14, 15 years old. And you get into this culture where every weekend, that's what you do. You go out. There's nothing to do in Montana, so you go and party. And then that begins, the brain chemistry begins to be affected at a very young age when the brain is developing as a teenager. And then as they move into young adulthood, they realize, I can't stop this. So eventually, you're old enough to go to the bars, you go to the bars. And it gets to the point where you are completely, if you will, saturated with the culture of alcohol. And as you had mentioned, you step back and you realize that everything in your life revolves around this. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's it takes up so much time to plan out your day when you're an alcoholic. Okay, I'm going to get up. What time does the bar open? And then at what point in my busy day do I have time to stop at the liquor store to stock up for, say, we're leaving for the weekend? Well, I'm going to need this much alcohol to get me through the weekend. It's a lot of planning.
And they won't let you buy beer before 10 o'clock in the morning at the grocery store.
8 a.m.
Wait,
8 a.m.
is that a real thing?
Yeah.
It's actually 8.
Yeah.
Take my word for it.
Something tells me that Angel knows this better than Peter.
But yeah, and just going back to what you were saying, you start drinking, you're 14 or 15 in Montana. Even the athletic kids at school, they have a hobby, they have something to do. Even those kids are at the kegger on the weekend. And when I graduated from high school, all my friends had a kegger at their house. Their parents threw them a keg. I'm like, we're 17. And it's just acceptable for whatever reason in Montana.
So we have an enormous cultural problem. Okay, and alcohol, and this town has more breweries than you can just shake a stick at. There are breweries on every corner. There's distilleries. There's and everybody encourages responsible drinking, but it's still drinking. And so anyway, I don't want to throw a value judgment out there, but it just seems like our priorities are really screwed up here. Anyway.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think the difficulty and the thing that's hard for you on an individual basis too, when you're drinking alcohol, is when does it become a problem? Is it a problem if you have one glass of wine a night? Probably not. Science says you live longer that way. Is it a problem when you have 5 glasses of wine a night? Probably. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to take a break. We're up against a break. John, if you'll hang on, we have 2 lines open. If you want to visit with Angel, give us a call. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Okay, we're back on Talk Back. Our good friend Angel Hughes from The Blaze here with us this morning talking about her recovery story. And we got lots of folks on the phone who want to talk with you. So, John, you're up first with Angel. Hi.
Angel, hey, congratulations on taking a shot at this.
Thanks, John.
On April the 4th, I'll have 35 years in.
Wow.
Good job.
So,
Good job, man.
I've got just a couple things to say. Be able to laugh at yourself. Don't be embarrassed about being an alcoholic.
Of course, yeah.
Don't try to cover it up or anything. But be able to sit down and kind of think about your past and just laugh it off. If people want you to drink or offer you drinks, they're not your friend anyway. So you might have to find a whole new set of friends.
Sure. Yeah, that's great advice.
And just, be careful on what you drink. Don't drink anything that might remind you of a real drink or what you're used to drink.
Gotcha. Hey, listen, John, I hate to do this to you. We got to get some more calls in. We're running out of time. Hey,
okay.
Appreciate your support, man.
Thanks, John.
Take care.
Yeah,
Thanks
take
so
care.
much. Okay.
Good luck.
All right, thank you. And let's see, get rid of that. And this would be Marilyn. Is that you?
Yep.
Hi, Marilyn.
Me.
Go ahead, real quickly. What's your
okay.
What's on your mind?
Well, I think it's a shame that people don't accept the fact that the gospel, the church, that life, that if you live it that way, 1980 was the last time. Immediately when I started going to church and accepted Christ as my Savior, immediately I quit doing drugs and alcohol and everything that goes along with that. And our pastor here in town, Pastor Phillips, courageously addressed the subject here on alcohol, and he's done pornography and abortion, some others recently, and because of the culture, and I guess pastors just assume that people that go to church don't do all those things, but it's becoming a problem in the church, and so he finally addressed it, and I wish that people didn't discount that power that surrendering your life to Christ has, because
Marilyn,
it does.
I got to get one more call in. Thank you so much for that. Kim, you're on Talkback. Hi. We have 1 minute. Go.
Good morning, Peter, John, and April. April, congratulations.
Angel. It's Angel. Angel, by the way.
Angel.
It's almost
Angel.
April.
An appropriate name.
Thank
Okay.
you.
something that's on the uprise, and I'm sure you're well aware of just from exposure in today's society, is people that are taking antidepressants, mix that with alcohol.
Sure.
And after 2 drinks, even if it's a weak form of alcohol, a person can black out. And as a bartender, you sit there and look at that person, and there's no change. They're outside, it looks the same after 4 or 5, but inside there's a lot of turmoil.
Okay, Kim, I'm so sorry. My time is completely up. If folks want to get the help you got, is there a way, how do they get in touch with the organization that you are working with?
I would Google the Recovery Center Missoula, and you can certainly reach out to me. My email address is angel@963theblaze.com.
Okay, thanks so much, Angel.
Thanks, you guys.
Good to have you back.
The new Missoula Nissan Hyundai. The new Missoula Nissan Hyundai.
All right, we have more guests, another guest in the studio, and joining us this morning is Stan Spencer with Backcountry Sled Patriots. How are you?
Great. Good to be here.
By the way, you guys got the coolest baseball caps, I got to tell you.
Well, thanks. Anything for the cause.
Actually, we have one of those caps to give away today. So if someone wants to give me a call at 721-1290,
Well, you're
you
lucky.
Backcountry
I almost
Were you going to steal that?
No, let's just give it away.
This one isn't pinhead size. I don't know if you would have been able to get very far with that.
Okay, well, thanks a lot, John. All right, so let's talk with Stan. First of all, tell us, what is the Backcountry Sled Patriots? Obviously, you're talking about snowmobiles.
Okay, well, I guess it's something I could talk about for hours, and I'll try to condense it here in a minute or so. What we're trying to do is keep...
Well, we've got a whole hour, Stan, so just relax. Go ahead.
Our whole objective, our mission, is to keep the backcountry areas open for snowmobiling. And what I'm talking about is not the groomed trails. It's off-trail riding, basically in your high alpine areas. And what we've been confronted with probably for 20 years, but really toughly or seriously in the last 10 years, is these areas are basically being closed to motorized use. And I guess I could buy into it if there was a logic or a reason behind it, but the bottom line is they're being closed to, I guess, sustain or the social values of those who want a quiet area. Now, to me, there ought to be a little weight to social values for other users in the backcountry. But at the end of the day, here's the thing that kind of grinds me a little bit. The people that want it to be a quiet area are not in the area in the wintertime. So it's kind of like, does a tree make a noise when it falls in the forest if nobody's around?
Right.
And we've had this discussion, with the Forest Service in forever and ever, it seems like. But at the end of the day, here's where we're at. The Forest Service, and you get political pressure for these decisions, but snowmobiles at the end of the day leave, when the snow melts, our track is gone. We leave less impact on the environment than the horse user, or a backpacker or people putting in campsites. We're probably the least impactful on the environment of any backcountry user. So why these areas need to get closed or too motorized, it just does not. We can't get any sense out of it.
Well,
let me ask.
Go ahead. I was going to say, lines are open. Maybe if you have a reason you can share with Stan. Well, it's because we just don't like that. It scares the animals, or whatever it might be. Give us a call. All 3 lines are open. Go ahead, John. Sorry.
Well, yeah, I wanted to ask you about if you could kind of explain for people that haven't been involved in snowmobiling at all. If you can give us an idea of how much land is accessible to you now compared to how much there was. What's off limits now compared to how much there was in the last 10 years or 20 years? You said that it was going under fire.
Okay, well, I'll go current and then go backwards. Last year in Idaho and Montana, 435,000 acres were closed to winter motorized use. Now, these are areas that would be adjacent, I would say, to the Missoula market alone. Beyond that, we have millions of acres that are either a wilderness or a designated wilderness. So I couldn't give you the exact acreage. if you just go into the Bitterroot Sellway and so forth, you stack up 3 million acres real quick across the state of Montana. And I apologize, I have those numbers. I just don't have them on the top of my head right now. But it's multi-millions of acres.
No, well, now is the problem that I can see happening here is that the more you restrict snowmobiles to certain areas, the more snowmobiles there will be in those areas, and that does make it more crowded and more noisy. It's kind of exacerbating the problem, right?
You know what? We need to sign you up as vice president of marketing. That's exactly what happens. It's exactly what happens. So good up in Lolo National or Lolo Pass, the local snowmobile club grooms all the trails for the benefit of a cross-country skier as well as for snowmobiling. Now, you push the people that were normally in the backcountry into those areas. Yeah, there's conflict going to develop without a doubt. There's just no other way to look at it.
What about hunting and snowmobiling? How do those work together? Is it allowed, not allowed? Usually when I see these posted, you can't take a car in there either. So
no, there's no conflict. We're snowmobiling after all hunting seasons are closed, with the exception maybe mountain lions, and those guys are down lower, so there's no conflict there at all.
Okay. We're going to take a break, and Rena, if you don't mind holding, I want to give you plenty of time to get your comment out. We have 2 lines open. Stan Spencer is joining us this morning from Backcountry Sled Patriots, trying to open up more land to snowmobiles. Love to hear your opinions for and against. It's kind of what this show is all about. So we'll come right back with more of Talk Back in a moment. Hey, we're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is the number. John King's over there. I'm Peter Christian. Joining us here in the studio, Stan Spencer with Backcountry Sled Patriots. And all of a sudden we have phones. So folks on the phone. Good morning, Rena. You're on with Stan. Go ahead.
Good morning, Stan, gentlemen, everybody. 20 years ago, the Clinton administration put into place something called their Roadless Initiative. And across the Northwest here, the loggers were locked out of the forest. And I'm old enough to remember when they came down. Oh, here I am crying again. They came down from, like, Libby and everywhere in their trucks with their kids. And there was this big parade into Missoula for the public comment period. Mm-hmm. And they weren't allowed in. The officials, U.S. Fish and Wildlife or Forest Service, whatever they were afraid to open the doors and let them in.
Why?
Well, they thought maybe they were dangerous.
Okay.
But I remember that, and it was, a big deal in Missoula. That was in response to being locked out of the forest. And then, of course, they put in wolves, and they've gone on with this policy of roadless, and they're tearing out some of the logging roads, that just creating huge gashes. You should go up and see it up at 9 Mile in some of the places where they've done erosion control. But my point was this. I saw an article the other day that maybe John can Google, and it was about the new Forest Service budget and how they didn't have enough money, and that most of the actual tasks that are going on in the forest right now is done by volunteers. And I'm wondering if Stan could speak to that. And this article said that they don't really have the money or the expertise to actually do what's being done, and the forests are full of burned and dead trees.
Right.
And anyway, so that's my comment.
Okay, thanks, Rena. Appreciate the call. So, did you want to comment? Go ahead. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm not an expert on all the goings on in the Forest Service, but some of your points really hit home. I'll actually back up a little. I remember the big showing with the loggers and everything, and it has kind of gone downhill from there. Here's the thing that just I sit in Forest Service meetings a lot. I think we've had 22 8-hour meetings in the last 2 years just on one forest plan. And logging, Forest Service to me equates to logging. That doesn't even get into the discussion. That's way tabled back on page 925 of the whole plan. It's all about recreation primarily, and recreation that's non-motorized. Those are the hot spots, and so we get now. I'll come back to what you were talking about for not having enough money, budgets, and I think to some degree they're right. These forest fires have eaten up a ton of money, but on the other hand, you ought to go look around some of the parking lots in some of these large forest or complexes and look at all the brand new vehicles and so forth, and you kind of wonder how dollars get spent. I don't think that the Forest Service willfully tries to waste money. Having said that, I'm not so sure that there's some real strong managers, from a monetary aspect, the way money gets spent compared to a CEO of a company that has to make a profit. So kind of a long way to answer your question. Definitely they have staffing problems. I just don't know where that money gets spent.
It sounds to me, as I've lived here in Montana since I was just a kid, and when I look at the way things have changed, and more and more land is taken over and managed by the federal government, it just seems to me that it's not economical, and it's not even philosophical. It's almost like, and I'm using this very hesitantly, it's almost like a religious movement to get anybody out of the wilderness that doesn't agree with one very narrow slice of the way these areas should be used. In other words, if you're not absolutely quiet on a pair of snowshoes, whatever, if you're on an all-terrain vehicle, or whether you're on a snowmobile or whatever it might be, you are simply not allowed in these, quote, sacred areas, unquote. Now, am I off base there?
No, you're exactly right, Peter. Here's the numbers are between 1 and 1.5% of the population actually uses these backcountry areas. And this is by the Forest Service's own surveys. I'm not making these numbers up. So hand in hand with that, the motorized or the snowmobile industry in particular is growing at double the rate of backpacking. So now we have a conundrum. We're opening more areas or restricting more areas just for backpacking and taking the motorized out of it, and yet that recreation area is growing. But I think at the end of the day, that 1% is a real good number that we need to watch. So many acres for so few people.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just a real quick question. When we're talking about the difficulties the Backcountry Sled Patriots are trying to address, most of them, it sounds, so far we've been talking about the Forest Service, but are they mostly federal, state, local? The forests are controlled, obviously, by different entities, depending on where you go. So where do you find the biggest hurdles?
Federal, one word.
Okay.
Basically, no, the rest of them can we work with, but the lands, the what I would call the pristine snowmobile areas are almost all federal lands.
Okay, with that, we're going to take a break. Chuck and Tyler, we're going to get you guys on here in just a moment. We have one line open. Our guest in studio, and we'd love to have you visit with us this morning at 721-1290 or 1-800-568-5309. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back on Talkback, 721-1290. John King, Peter Christian, Stan Spencer joining us in studio from the Backcountry Sled Patriots. I promised to get to the phones right away, so let's do that right now. Chuck, you're on with Stan Spencer. Go ahead.
And as usual, I'm probably not going to make sense right away.
All right.
If you go to any university website that does forest management, it's geared to finding someone that doesn't like snowmobiles. They're looking for the conservation club member. to come to their college and learn how to have a job in the Forest Service. If you go to a Forest Service and run through the staff how many belong to this conservation group or that conservation group, they aren't snowmobile members, but if they are a snowmobile member, they're not allowed to sit on the committee that helps determine recreation activities. That actually happened in Lincoln, Montana. And it's a social thing. The snowmobiles are out. I'm sorry. And the snowmobile people want to recreate. They want to go and do their job. They want to raise their family, but they're not activists, and therefore they don't count. They're not part of the mix. We have a situation of the absence of leadership. In the Pittler Mountains, the new supervisor came in. He didn't like horses, so backcountry horsemen were gone until they got together with congressmen and senators and spent a whole bunch of time saying, what's going on? We just cleaned these trails. These are the men and women that go in and open up trails for hikers and horsemen and probably snowmobilers in some places. But they were immediately excluded because the new person did not like to have to step on horse poop. As if there isn't moose poop and elk poop and bear poop. You get my point? When I came to Montana, I was at awe seeing my first pack train go by at the Bob Marshall. I just thought it was fabulous. And there were some hikers with me that are all mad. Look at the poop on the trail. Look at this. Look at that. I thought I was 100 years back in time. It was fabulous. But those people aren't getting the jobs anymore. Am I making sense where I'm coming from?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
They're not the sons and daughters of loggers. Their families have been destroyed. So their kids aren't going to college to learn logging or to learn how to care for a forest. And if you just read what's happening with the rattlesnake and the Lola forest, you can just see the momentum of what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I love listening
to
the every time there's a proposal for how to deal with dead trees falling over or beetle kill.
Right.
Oh, we can't cut down the tree. Here's our 5 plans on what we might do if you agree with us. And don't have a nude protest out on a bicycle somewhere before we go out there and do anything in the woods.
How about nude snowmobiling? That would be.
I don't know, Stan. Does that happen?
Well, I'm all in.
Oh,
our website's www.sledpatriots.com. So let's sign up for the nude deal.
Yeah. Okay.
But in response to what Chuck is saying, he's dead right. And this is what's really hurt snowmobilers, and I'll be the first to admit it. We were passive. We sat in the background. We bellyached about it in the coffee shop, but we did not have a voice. And you hit the nail right on the head where that voice needs to be in Washington, D.C. What we run into out here is a forest supervisor may buy into what snowmobilers want to do, but now he has to answer to Region 1, who has to answer to the Chief Forester in Washington, D.C. And I have real good experience with a forester saying, yeah, I think what you guys are saying makes sense, let's go for it, and getting this thing just chopped right out from underneath him. So that was the reason we formed Backcountry Sled Patriots, was to try to unify all of these clubs around the state and the state associations and other groups, so we could get a unified voice back in Washington, D.C. That's our end game.
I think one of you, this may be tongue-in-cheek, but I think one of the problems with the name of your organization is it's got the word patriot in it. And I could just see, oh, patriots, huh? Sure, I know all about you.
Well, you could be the, sled socialists.
Well,
that seems to go over
that's
well.
more alliterative anyway. So.
Well, I got to tell you, our board of directors, we spent hours coming up with a name, and we felt Patriots. We felt strong enough in our mission that Patriots was appropriate, because we are standing up. We are trying to defend, what's right for a lot of people.
Sure. Let's get Tyler on the line. All right, Tyler, thanks for holding. You're on with Stan. Go ahead.
Hi, guys. So, Stan, you just said something that is very shocking to me, but I look at what you say and I see it in the broader light about being passive and how we've lost everything just by not paying attention, and we look up and then all of a sudden it's gone. Last week, President Obama confiscated over 2 million acres of land in California to convert that land into 3 new parks. and nobody said anything about it. They're taking our land, and they're doing it on purpose. And we patriots, we Americans, we go to the coffee shops, we complain about it, we call in on the radio show, we complain about it. I'm a wildlife photographer, and by law, now I have to have some sort of permit in order to snap a picture of a mountain and sell it. Well, they can kiss my butt. I ain't going to do it. I ain't laying down. I'm going to fight. I want this land. It's my land. It's your land. It's our land. It's not their land. They've forgotten their place, and it is time to tell them what that place is. Get out of my woods, government. Thank you.
All right, Tyler, thanks for the call. With that, it's perfect time to take a break, but go ahead.
When we get back, I'll read the Forest Management budget statement on the mission of the Forest Service. It also gives us specifics about how large of amount of land the Forest Service actually manages in the United States. So that should be interesting.
Stay with us. We'll be right back. And, well, all three lines are full, so we'll be right back. Okay, it's Talk Back at 721-1290. All three of our lines are full, but John, you wanted to share something from the Forest Service.
Sure. In their 2016 budget, they put out a statement of kind of what they stand for, and this is their overview.
How many trees had to be cut down to print this?
Well, this is digital, Peter.
Okay, sorry.
Using that newfangled internet. They say, our mission as the Forest Service is to sustain the health, diversity, and productivity of the nation's forest and grasslands to meet the needs of present and future generations. The Forest Service manages a system of 154 national forests, 20 grasslands in 44 states, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. The National Forest Service includes specially designed wilderness areas, wild and scenic rivers, national monuments, which is actually what Tyler was referring to earlier, research and experimental areas, and other unique natural and cultural treasures. These lands encompass 193 million acres, an area almost twice the size of California. I'll just stop there. You get a picture of the size of the size and scope of this project.
And what's one of the first words in that statement? Sustain. Sustainability is a magic word.
Sustain the health, diversity, and productivity.
So, anyway, let's get to the phones and say good morning to Candy. Hi, Candy.
Hi. How are you guys? As usual, I'm going to be your bright light for the morning and trace this back to Agenda 21 and 2030.
Okay.
And I think that these guys would benefit a real lot in reading that UN Agenda 21 and 2030 to find out what's actually going on, because America is one large project city. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Candy. Thanks for the call. 721-12. Have you ever heard of that, Agenda 21?
I have. As a matter of fact, in some of the forest planning meetings, the meeting drifted right in that direction. So it's something everybody should be aware of.
Okay, let's get Mike on the line. Mike, you're on Talkback. Hi.
Yeah, I just wanted to say welcome to the world of the trapper. You guys, we've been going through this for years. And by the way, you snowmobilers don't hurt a blasted thing that I can figure out. So, but the one of the greatest snowmobile areas they had was east of Kalispell up there, called the hiking area, There was 12 feet of snow up there, and oh my God, you're going to ruin the whole environment. Well, the snowmobiles went, and then the horses went, and now I don't know who else goes, but they were all gone. I'll tell you what, all these groups like the trappers and you people we need to get together and go as a unit, because we are being run over big time. And snowmobiles have never been a problem around me. So.
All right, Mike.
Yeah.
Thanks for the call, man. Eric, you're on Talkback. Hi.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys are familiar with what the BLM was doing to the Bundys down in Nevada, and have been for years, and what they did to the Hammonds over in Oregon. And the BLM, I don't know if you saw the people that they brought in there. They looked like some sort of mercenaries. And so Clive Bundy now has been charged with violent crimes against federal agents when the guy doesn't even carry a gun. And so you have have these agencies and that are arming to the teeth against us. Why? And I won't use the word conspiracy because I don't want to be called a conspiracy theorist, but that's exactly what it is. They're pushing us off the land, and those are very nice sounding words that the Forest Service uses, but all it means is that they're pushing us off the land, and it's going to continue until we do something about it. And I don't believe it's going to be taken care of peacefully. I believe we're going to have to force them off the land with arms. And there it is.
All right. Thanks, Eric. Appreciate the call. Go ahead, John.
I had a question for you, Stan, and basically it is, what do you do? Because we haven't really talked about that yet. When it comes to the Sled Patriots, I mean, do you run around with weapons and threaten the federal officials off the land, or do you have some other method of trying to get access?
No, and quite frankly, we discourage any kind of approach like that. There's room for collaboration, working with the Forest Service, trying to, I guess, get our message out. Exactly what happens up in the woods in the wintertime. One of the issues that we've had is nobody in the Forest Service has ever been up there, so all of the decisions were made on assumption. And you guys are laughing, but this is let me share a true story with you. We had a forest plan, and you go through a process, and the end of it's an appeal process, and it's kind of like appealing to the fox in the hen house. But at the end of the day, the argument was that there was too much pressure in the backcountry in the Great Burn, so it had to be closed. So I asked, what kind of a study was done to come to this determination, and the answer was, and this is honest to God truth, is, well, we looked at the parking lot at the Lolo Pass, and it looked to us like it was getting busier, so we just assumed it was getting busier in the Great Burn. Now, that was a study done to close 200,000 acres to snowmobiles. And we have subsequently litigated against that, and it's, I guess, ongoing would be the best way to describe it. Anyhow, back to what we do. We spend a lot of time in Forest Service meetings trying to input at the front end of a forest plan rather than going to the Forest Service after they've come up with an idea and asking them to change it. That's pretty fruitless. The other thing that we do is basically try and encourage more participation in the process. If the public doesn't get engaged, we're not going to go anywhere. And that's where we've been hurting as far as snowmobilers. We've been too passive.
So when you hear the word public service comment period, public comment period, that's when you wake up, right? That's when you get to work?
I'm already awake at that point, and I'm trying to wake everybody else up. Those are critical. Numbers count, without a doubt.
We got to go to a break, but real quick, how many lawsuits are you involved in right now as a group?
2 lawsuits and 4 forest plans.
In Montana, Idaho?
3 in Montana, 1 in Idaho.
Okay, we're coming right back. And so, Earl, we'll get your call on in a moment. We also have 2 lines open if you want to get through. 721-1290. And we're visiting with Stan Spencer from Backcountry Sled Patriots. All right, we're back on Talkback. I'm Peter Christian. John King's over there moving and a grooving. Joining us here in studio, Stan Spencer with Backcountry Sled Patriots. Now, we got a couple of Facebook questions.
Yeah. Katie wants to know. There are a lot of specific questions here. Katie says, how many miles of roads and trails in the backcountry have been closed by the Forest Service over the last 23 years? And is there a push to restrict or ban mountain bikes and horses access to the backcountry?
Okay, well, as for the miles of the road closed, I have no idea other than it's huge. I just would be guessing, so I'll just leave it at that. As far as restricting, bicycles, mountain bikes are absolutely restricted in any recommended wilderness or actual...
Wait, they're not motorized? They don't make any noise? What's the deal?
Well, the 1964 Wilderness Act specifically refers to mechanized. The word motorized isn't used that much, and going to the specific interpretation, wow. That's how that came to pass.
Wow, lawyers.
How specific are they on that mechanized? Can I bring an elk cart back there?
Absolutely not. No, shut right off.
A scooter?
Nope.
A trampoline?
It's not mechanized. All right, let's get to the phone, trampoline boy. Earl, you're on Talkback with Stan Spencer. Hi.
Good morning, gentlemen. I always appreciate your forum. It's a real pleasure and service to the community.
Thank you.
I'm with Backcountry Horseman Missoula chapter, and we were briefly mentioned about the work we do in clearing trails around the area. And we have several chapters throughout the state, and we try to maintain as much as we can with the membership. And, of course, we have two different areas. We have areas that are not wilderness where we are a little more productive because we can use chainsaws and so forth to go up in and keep the trails open. But in the wilderness, it all has to be done by hand. We can take saws in there, but no motorized stuff. So what we have seen is the either bugs or whatever policy regarding the timber in the backcountry. We've had lots of fires, and in a couple years after a fire, the windfall is absolutely stunning. We've lost lots of trails in the wilderness areas because we don't have enough manpower to keep them clear. And it doesn't take very long, somewhere about 5 years not maintaining a trail, and Mother Nature takes it over. So I'd like to put in a plea. This coming Saturday is the Missoula chapter's membership drive out at Lolo Community Center. Anybody interested in helping clear trail or maintain trailheads is welcome to come and learn about membership in our group.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Now, speaking of get-togethers, now you have a Next Generation fundraiser coming up March 12th. Can you tell us about that, Stan?
You bet. I sure can. Basically, the reason we do this is donations and fundraisers are our only source of raising money. We don't get any grants from Uncle Sam or anything.
What, the Forest Service isn't helping foot the bill here?
Not yet. We're working on it.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to have a dinner, a live and a silent auction, and a dance. The dinner's kind of unique. One of our members has a humongous barbecue that you kind of tow around like a semi-trailer, so he's going to do all the cooking. The live and the silent auction kind of speak for themselves. Other than the live auction is going to be unique for the guys or people that are snowmobilers out there. One of the sleds is a mod sled driven by Keith Curtis, which won the King of the Hill or World Championship at Jackson Hole 2 years ago. This sled's going to be auctioned. I also have a mod sled that I built that's going to be auctioned. We have one other smaller sled that was donated by Kurtz Polaris. And the dance is the big deal. We have the Boppa dips.
Wow.
So I think a lot of you guys listening know them.
Love the dips.
50s and 60s. Dress as Hawaiian. It's not mandatory. We won't kick you out. Anyhow, the doors open at the Lolo Community Center in Lolo, March 12th. Doors open at 4:30. Dinner at 5:30. Live auction at 6:45, and the dance starts at 8 o'clock. Single ticket $20. A couple $35 for dinner and the Boppa dips. We think that's a heck of a deal.
Ooh, and the food's coming from Cafe Firenze, I see.
And Cafe Firenze is doing the bar for us and have generously agreed to donate a fair amount of the proceeds back to us.
Fantastic.
I'd like to, at this point mention all of the people, but I don't have time. But, for all those businesses and individuals that have donated to this, thank you so much. It's just amazing how people are stepping up right now to help us out.
Great.
A couple questions, comments. Justin wanted to know when the trail cleanup meeting in Lolo was at the community center. Didn't hear the time or date.
I didn't write it down. I'm sorry.
But if you want to call back and give us the time and date, that'd be great. Caller.
Yeah.
Whose name I forgot. Sorry.
Okay.
Matt wants to know how many miles of roads and trails are snowmobiles allowed to recreate on in Montana? How many total acres are snowmobiles allowed on in Montana? Also, how many total snowmobilers are there?
Don't know. No. Actually, I don't know the miles of groomed trails. It's pretty substantial. Each club has different mileages. I know in the Missoula area, I think it's about 300 miles that are actually groomed, and there are other trails that you can ride. As we talked earlier, these are also being slowly closed down. But one thing I will say, the snowmobile industry is about $100 million industry in the state of Montana. This was done by, I believe, an economics professor at U of M. I forget his name. So it's pretty substantial. I can't remember the total amount of snowmobiles in the state.
Okay, we're up against a break. We're going to come right back. Alan and Bruce, we'll get both you guys on when we come back from the break. Only a few minutes left to visit with Stan Spencer from Backcountry Sled Patriots, so we'll be right back.
So you got to get certified wood.
Hey, it's Talk Back, and did we get the information?
Yeah, so the trail cleanup thing,
Right.
we got a call in about it a little while ago.
Right.
It's at the Lolo Community Center this Saturday.
Same place, right.
If you go at 5:30, you can get bear spray training. And then if you go at 6:30, I think there's like a meal, and you'll join the club. But there's also some other stuff you need to get approval before they let you go and start clearing trail. You got to get trained and.
Well, yeah. Okay. Well, let's get Alan on the line. Alan, thanks for holding. Go ahead. You're on with Stan.
Yeah. Good morning, Stan.
Morning.
You have indicated that the Forest Service isn't necessarily the folks that's closing these trails. So, who's behind the push to close all of these trails to snowmobiles and to motorized vehicles?
I would call them the wilderness advocate groups. Their ideology or philosophy is they want a quiet area, and they've just done a lot better job of putting their voice to the Forest Service as opposed to us defending our position. So that's who's behind it. I would also say that there is a pretty strong ingrained ideology within the Forest Service now to also manage a lot of lands as wilderness or recommended wilderness.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. It seems to me like over the years the Forest Service has changed. We used to have dedicated foresters, people that were dedicated to taking care of the forest and of the land in a very, very productive way, and that's changed. They have become more inclined to wanting to see the land closed off and to reduce the number of people. Another question: do you have any idea now how many acres of actual wilderness we now have in this country?
I don't in the whole country. Actually, I think John might have had that number a little bit earlier. But
I have talked to Senator when Baucus was senator. I wrote him the letter and asked him that, and he sent me a pretty good program on that, or a pretty good bunch of information. And at that time, about 7 or 8 years ago, there was over 127 million acres, and as we all know, every year Congress designates more land as wilderness. It seems to be something that they have found to be a way of life in Congress, I think, is a way to put it.
Well, I think it's because it's so easy to do, Alan.
Alan, there's just one quick thing I'd like to bring up. When you said that they're designating wilderness, what they're not designating it, or Congress isn't designating it wilderness. What's happening is the Forest Service is designating it recommended wilderness. And in Region 1 in the Northern District, they have a guidance that they have developed where they treat a recommended wilderness as a wilderness. So it's an end run around Congress. I know it's a moot point, but I thought it needed clarity there.
Can you tell us how Congress is dealing with it? I mean, are you in conversation with your representatives, and how do they decide on the issue? Where do they land?
Yes. Always in discussion, primarily with the Idaho and the Montana delegation. But here's the deal. Congress really has no appetite for more wilderness. So that's why they've done the end run of managing a recommended wilderness as a wilderness. It's very difficult to get a new wilderness area designated because there's no appetite from the public for that right now.
So
there's 759 wildernesses. 109,754,604 acres of wilderness in U.S.
Let's get Bruce on the line. Bruce, thanks for holding. We've got about 2 minutes. Go.
Oh, well, thanks for squeaking me in, guys. Motorized use isn't the only thing that's getting canceled out here. My point is I like to go rock hound, and there's a great area up behind Lolo Hot Springs. Big, huge area. You can go find some real nice crystals and stuff. And lo and behold, about 2 years ago, it's no off-road, no surface disturbance, no nothing. You can't go, and that was foot traffic.
Yeah, welcome to the real world, Bruce.
Yeah,
We're seeing that.
everybody's gonna. If you like to go out in the woods and do whatever you like to do, you got to pay for taking pictures. Yeah, it's getting pretty pathetic and disgusting out there.
Thanks for the call, sir. Appreciate that. I want to try to get one more call in. Emmett, real quickly, you got less than a minute. Go.
Oh, thanks for taking my call. I loved this, fascinating, but I loved Eric's call. I completely agree with Eric that it is pretty much a conspiracy. But just one thing further, it's population control and surveillance of the citizens. I think that if you have the survival skills, you should be able to go out in a cabin on your own and live away from society if that's what you want to do. But they want us off the land so that the government can keep us under surveillance and keep us pretty much as slaves rather than free people out on the land.
And
so
with that, thanks for the call, Emmett. Okay, real quickly. So how can folks find out more about your group, and we donate or whatever? What do we do?
The best way to find us is on our website and or our Facebook site. Website is www.sledpatriots.com. And there's email contacts, everything you need to know about us. And while you're looking at it, you'll see some merchandise. We have some sale. Please feel free to buy it and send us some money. We'd appreciate it.
Good deal. Hey, it's a pleasure. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, guys. Really enjoyed it.
Appreciate it. And that's going to do it for today. What's coming up on tomorrow's fabulous program?
We'll have the World Quest members in the studio for Montana World Affairs Council.
In other words, it's the kids that are smarter than us. Is that it?
Yeah. Which is most kids. Pretty much open the door.
It doesn't take a whole lot for that to happen around here. All right. I want to say thanks to Stan. Thanks to Angel for being with us this morning. She was great as well. And we'll do this all again tomorrow at 8:30 on Talkback. Of course, Montana Mornings on from 6 until 8:30. And you guys have yourselves a great day and enjoy this beautiful sunshine. But don't go too far up in the woods.